Hello, Amos.
Amos. That's right, Mr. Flynn. Amos.
Amos. When did you file suit for divorce?
A month ago.
Was there any reason for filing at this particular time?
Well, I'll say. The newspaper said Roxy was expecting a little stranger.
Well, that's hardly grounds for divorce, is it?
A little too much of a stranger.
Oh, by that you mean you doubted the paternity of the child.
Well, sure.
Tell me something, Amos. You share a bed with your wife?
Yes, sir, every night.
You expect this jury to believe that you slept next to this woman every night without exercising your rights as a husband?
Well, I could have if I wanted to.
Oh, but you didn't.
No, I did.
Did what?
Want to.
But you didn't.
Didn't what?
What you wanted.
Wait a minute, I'm getting confused here.
Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Boytech. How are you doing?
Good, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I was talking to my mother-in-law, and she said, "When is your friend coming along?" And I said, "Oh, he'll be here tomorrow." I was talking to her yesterday, and she goes, "That Boytech seems like a nice guy."
Oh, that's why you called me Boytech.
And I just think it's very funny.
I thought, like, is that like the accent in the film that we're talking about? But no.
Boytech. And I like that she said Boytech is a nice guy, not nice boy, which is what I was hoping would happen. Boytech's a nice boy.
Well, I always try to be a guy.
So, Bartek, we are back here to talk about a movie.
Yes, Ryan.
And the world has changed quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The world has changed quite a lot. It prepared itself for us to do the movies we're covering. Last episode, you recommended us to, cover To Be or Not to Be. For this one, I recommended that we cover Chicago. And in the interims of times, things have gone on in the world where Mel Brooks said, "Hey, Spaceballs 2."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because we talked about Spaceballs a lot. My biggest regret is we recorded our episode beforehand, but we had a week off because we were just too busy to edit and publish it. And then Mel Brooks said, "Well, fuck you." And now, as a day before we get this out, John C. Reilly has one of those videos on YouTube where he talks about his career, and he talked about Chicago a lot. And I was just like, what a bounty for us. Yeah, I love this.
I remember I said last episode, I really hope I'm not jinxing it by, talking about how he's really old. He's going to be in the news for some reason, and then he was, but it was for
good reason.
A good reason, yeah.
Hopefully. I found out that the Spaceballs 2 film is going to be directed by the man who did a film that I very much enjoyed. I don't know how you would feel about it. It's called Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. It's a very strange, absurdist comedy about these two middle-aged women who are like Bill and Ted type characters, where they're basically the same person, where they're joined at the hip, and they go on a seaside vacation where they get embroiled in a James Bondian type plot. And the comedy comes from them finally having to separate off from one another and learning what it is to be their own people. It's very funny.
It sounds good.
It's very and absurd, truly absurd. One of them gets lost in the jungle and meets a crab that speaks with Morgan Freeman's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's silly stuff like that. And the James Bond villain-esque man in it is the guy from 50 Shades of Grey. Also, it's a musical. It's
so
all over the place.
Why are we doing Chicago this episode?
Yeah, so we're doing Chicago today because it's one of my regrets that I didn't choose it for our Year of the Musical last year.
Mm.
But it's also good because this is a period piece. So it also fits in with that old movie tiny feel that we're doing with this year, where this is the year of older cinema. Although this film is only from 2002, it perfectly captures the vibe of the musicals from when this was originally conceived with Bob Fosse. I mean, you can tell Liza Minnelli played Roxy on stage at one point. Of course she did. But also it captures that feel of when the story is set of the 20s to early 30s type vibe.
Yeah, it's kind of like when last year we did Babylon.
Yeah, or when we started this very podcast and it was we did
a bunch of
Cannibal the Musical, which had that throwback. Oh yes, with Pictures Powwow, not with Big Fat Liar.
I was about to say we did a lot of 2002 films when we actually started 10 years ago.
Yeah. What a crazy world we live in. But
Wait.
no, when we started Pictures Powwow, it's like we did Cannibal the Musical, which was very of its time, but it was throwing back to the period the characters were from. And then we did Miller's Crossing. Very similar thing.
And sorry, Ryan, it's been 7 days since we recorded, so I've completely forgotten what Pictures Powwow is. Please tell me.
Do you know about movies?
Is that
They're moving images.
Like the Harry Potter photos?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly like them. Yeah, exactly like
Okay.
them. Yeah, that's a good comparison. I sure hope that after this episode airs, there's not more horrific news about Harry Potter bullshit, but whatever. There always is every day of our lives. But movies are a thing. It's their entertainment, and we do a podcast where we sit down and talk about a piece of the giant puzzle that is the movie industry. We go over a film that's been recommended, and then at the end, we pick a new recommendation for the next episode. And then we watch that movie, talk about it, and so on. This time, I recommended the 2002 film Chicago.
Mhm.
Oscar darling, Chicago. Everyone gets an Oscar. You get an Oscar. You get an Oscar. Or at least nomination. Like a lot of interesting things when you read the behind the scenes of it. But this is a film that if people you have not seen, highly recommend that you do. The plot of this is simple on its surface, but there's a song in this called Razzle Dazzle, and that's what you really need to see about this movie. It has razzle dazzle. I describe this as one of those films that feels like the best movie you've ever watched while you're watching it. It's so entertaining. It's so thrilling. Each part of it just moves at a good pace where as it kept going, I said to my wife when I turned over, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like one of the most iconic songs. And then I realized that was like the 7th time I said that. And I'm not a huge lover of Chicago the musical. And then whenever I watch this movie, I'm like, I guess I'm a huge lover of Chicago the musical. And there's some random songs in this that I just quote to myself or I use randomly or comes into my mind. Like out of all of the bits of, they reached for the gun, there's just certain bits of it that I say to my wife out loud randomly, and I don't even know why. It's not like I'm thinking about Chicago. It just comes in. It just like in Ghostbusters, it just popped in there. It just in my mind.
Yeah, I was kind of the same. I've only seen this film once before.
Mm-hmm.
It was on a flight at some point in the late 2000s, so it's been quite a while since I watched it. And yet some of the songs had just lingered in my head, like just eternal earworms. But then watching the film, some of the ones that didn't linger in my head, it's like, oh yeah, this song.
Yeah, and some of them are like, oh, that's right, this is from Chicago. Of course it is. Like, oh yeah, of course, duh. But you maybe not connected it fully because either in your case you haven't watched it in a while, or in my case, it's a film that and a musical I underestimate that I'm so weirdly versed in. I'm like, oh yeah. Because a musical, for me, we talked about this last year, there are musicals that are mine. Like I'm like, this is my musical. Like I love Little Shop of Horrors, or I love Rocky Horror Picture Show, or Reefer Madness, or like there's several of them. Like these are in my stable. I'm always gonna come back to these. I'm either gonna listen to the soundtrack of them, I'm gonna watch them, I'm gonna go out and see a live production of these. Chicago has never been in my stable, but then I go, why isn't it? The film is very entertaining. And the songs are just catchy and they get you invigorated and they make you want to sing and dance. I think back to a while ago now, we got a recommendation from our friend Julio to cover a musical from the 60s called
How to Succeed at Business Without Really Trying.
And I remember one of my complaints, and I think I've talked about this with Bollywood movies too. Like one of my complaints was like, oh man, I hope the songs would be more musically and there would be more dancing and singing and dancing and more razzmatazz, razzle dazzle. What I mean by that is I kind of want more of what Chicago does. Or I want more of what Om Shanti Om does. Like that type of, like, I want more of that stuff. Because when we watched How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, I'm like, there's some of that, but not enough.
Yeah, it worked more on me. I listen to some of the songs every now and then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But everyone, please go and watch Chicago. We're going to get into it fully. My history with this is, I don't know when I first watched it. It was just one of those things that at some point we owned it on DVD and I watched it and I was enamored with it. If you have been long-time listeners of the podcast, you also know that a majority of this cast are people I like, people I've enjoyed in movies that are near and dear to me. Catherine Zeta-Jones is gorgeous, she's funny, she's a talented actress, and she's been a part of movies in my childhood that have meant the world to me. I love the Zorro movie, but obviously one of my favorite movies is Intolerable Cruelty, which we've covered on this podcast, and she's fantastic in that. Renee Zellweger, another one where it's like, oh, she's just been a part of like our youth in a way, whether you've seen her movies or not. Like she was big in this period of time, and it's like, oh, I love her in this and I love her in that. And John C. Reilly, another one where it's like, oh man, John C. Reilly's in Chicago, and if you're of our age, you got to see him like hit his stride with his comedy movies. But I've always been fascinated by John C. Reilly as an actor because he's had a whole other career of being a character actor in these interesting dramas and singing and dancing and all of that stuff, and even little character actors like Christine Baranski's in this as the reporter Mary Sunshine, and it's like, oh, I love Christine Baranski. She's always wonderful, and all of that. Like we have many returning actors for our podcast in this movie as well, whether it be Queen Latifah or even Dominic West, who is Fred Casely, the one that Renee Zellweger shoots. Do you remember what we've had him in?
What was his name?
Dominic West. Many people know him as the lead in the beloved TV show The Wire, but he's a British actor. And he was in, believe it or not, and I remember we talked about this because it was like, this is crazy. He was in Johnny English 2. He was like the villain.
Okay.
He was the main rival that he had to fight against. And it was like, oh, what a weird thing for him to be doing. And as soon as I saw him in this, I'm like, hey, look, it's a return for us to Johnny English 2. Oh man,
it's been many years since we did that.
But I just love this movie. I love the color of it. I love how much it shows off the dancing. I love how creative it is. I love how it embraces the world of theater and the world of cinema. Because it's always difficult when you adapt a theatrical piece to the film. Like, how much of it do you remove the theatrical quality and make it a film?
Yeah.
And how much do you embrace? And I think this film finds the perfect balance where it obviously leans into how you imagine this would play on the stage, but then it gives these embellishments that you can only do in a movie. So I'm a big lover of this, and it's been a while since I've given it a watch, and I thought it's about time that we came back and watched this. And I could not recall if you had seen this or not.
Yeah, just the one time, over a dozen years ago, and I remember liking it. I remember, a couple of songs from it. I remembered, like, the general story. I didn't necessarily remember, like, the general, I guess, conceit of it and, like, what it's stylistically doing, like the fact that all of the musical performances are kind of like metaphors for, what's really going on. So walking into this again, like we have the film pretty much opens up on a song, the All That Jazz. And it's it's a musical sequence that's being done on the stage. And I wasn't quite into the film at that point with that song. It's like, oh, this is a nice song, but
it's slow.
It's slow. And generally when I think of movie musicals, I tend to like it more when the musical sequences aren't on a stage. It's like, oh, out and about, kind of thing. So I wasn't really into it there. But then as the film kept going on, even probably by the literal next song, it was like, oh, okay. And when you eventually get to like the Razzle Dazzle Them song, it's like basically spelling out for like, hey, this is what the film's been doing the whole time. We're showing you a literal story of what's happening. And then all of these musical sequences are, stylized like, hey, this is what's happening in our heads kind of thing.
Cell Block Tango is like the third or fourth song in the movie, and that's like one of the biggest songs of the movie. And that's also another one where it shows you up front, if you hadn't already picked up, this is all performance. This is all their little versions of events. Like, you aren't actually going to get into the deep nuances of what it's like for Catherine Zeta-Jones to have killed her sister, because she doesn't actually care about having killed her sister. She's a selfish, egotistical person. It's about people who fuck around and find out. I adore... last night I watched this with my wife, and there's a bit where Catherine Zeta-Jones' character, Velma, has to humiliate herself, her act of desperation, and you get Roxy being an absolute bitch to her and giving her the advice of, like, lay off the chocolates, dun dun. And my wife said, like, oh, that was so mean. And I just turned and said, yeah, but Velma deserves it. Like, she was this just a moment ago, and now she's seeing it happen to her. Like, it's what comes around goes around, and that's the story. It's like, what comes around goes around. The cycle of fame, the 15 minutes of fame type deal. The lawyer, played wonderfully by Richard Gere, an actor who... Are you that familiar with Richard Gere? Have you seen many of his movies or know him that well?
This is the film that always jumps to my head when I hear him, so it's kind of just overshadowed if I have seen anything else with him in it.
I have not. I looked through his filmography, and outside of maybe like one or two minor roles or cameo roles or roles where he plays himself, I have not really engaged with Richard Gere's filmography outside of this. I've never seen An Officer and a Gentleman. I've never seen Pretty Woman. You know, these are the things that are big of his that I just haven't watched. I don't know why, but I really like him in this. But his character talks about how it's Chicago. There's, fresh blood. We'll go to that. Lucy Liu's in this movie for like 1 minute, and my jaw hit the floor as soon as I saw her. I went, holy crap, Lucy Liu's in this? How could I forget Lucy Liu's in this? She's amazing. She's in like one sequence, basically, where she kicks a lot of journalists in their genitals, and they just love her. They're like, oh, please, give us more.
Yeah,
Where's Scum? Where's Scum?
I was thinking of it's not even similar stylistically, but what was that film that Alex recommended for us? Bad People?
Yeah.
Was that the name of the film?
No.
Very Bad Things?
Very Bad Things, yeah.
Yeah,
with Christian Slater, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of
Cameron Diaz, yeah.
I was thinking of Very Bad Things, where one of the big criticisms people have of that film is like, oh, we're following unlikable people, and the defense that I think both of us had was like, oh, but it's entertaining to follow them and see, them getting their just desserts.
Retribution exists.
And this is a film where also like 99% of the characters are bad people, but it's just so entertaining to see, how they are, surviving in this really messed up world where even the people who haven't committed the crime are, they're interested in the sensationalization, entertainment through these immoral things.
And a film like this, in comparison to Very Bad Things, does have good people. Like, Very Bad Things has, like, no one is a good person in that movie. Everyone sucks. Everyone's nihilistic and cruel. And that's fun. This movie is kind of like Breaking Bad in the way where it's like there's one morally upright person, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The world doesn't care if you're good or bad. It will just chew you out and spit you out, and you just have to survive it. And that's John C. Reilly.
Yes.
That's Mr. Cellophane. He is the morally pure person of the movie, but that doesn't exempt him from, like, he doesn't get a happy ending just because he's a good guy.
He's exactly the 1% I was alluding to. And yeah, it's really interesting seeing what they do with him in that, like, last chunk of the film, where he does get his one song, where he's, like, front and center. Everything else in the film that we've been following and being entertained by is put aside. We are just with him in this moment. We are sympathizing with him. We understand him. We are rooting for him. And then when, he has his sad ending and it's just like very flippant, like, yep, that's your sad ending. You can go now. It's like, oh, we are out of the sympathy zone for him. And, we are just seeing exactly that he was right about his feelings.
Yeah, he takes the sympathy with him.
Yeah.
As he leaves the movie. The shred that you may have had for Roxy or any of the characters, which is very small to begin with because it's very clear up front, that Roxy is a sociopath. Like, she's just this narcissistic piece of work who's willing to do anything and everything to achieve fame. Even keep herself incarcerated even longer until she sees that the rope could come for her. That's the only reason she doesn't completely fuck herself over, is because, well, the rope does swing eventually, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, and the characters in this film understand the situation so well that you don't even really have, like, the makeup scene between her and Richard Gere. It's like, I'm really sorry.
No, it just cuts to, it's transactional.
It just cuts right back to them working together again, because, like, hey, I get what, we get how this works. Let's just get on with it.
There's so many tantalizing things to get into. Let's get into at least the production side of it. The look, the feel, the music, the dancing. It's all great. And it breaks my heart that Rob Marshall, the director, has never directed a good movie since this. And I don't say that facetiously. You look at his filmography, and all of them are bad. They're bad movies. They're poorly received. And as film adaptations of musicals, they're abhorrent as well. They're loathed.
Oh, jeez. But he nailed it here.
And he nailed it here. And here's the crazy thing, though. You can't always rely on ratings. We've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, Unappreciated Masterpieces exists, because there are movies that we love and adore that on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes rank like a 5 out of 10 or a 6. It's like, what's a 6 for you out of 10? That could be a really good movie, or could be nothing, or could be bad. So to put that into frame of reference, this movie's 7.2 on IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
Same score as the live-action Little Mermaid that he directed. So according to IMDb, they're equivalent to one another. When, let's be real, folks, that's not true. One of them's a film, the other's a product.
Yeah, this film had, like, no great CGI of animals.
No, this film didn't have photorealistic fish singing at you.
Or a pelican.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I should get it right. But
I think it was a pelican.
This one doesn't have Melissa McCarthy, so, I guess it's lesser than it has Queen Latifah. But I just wanted to raise that because this is one of those films where, like, oh man, a great filmmaker is behind this. Someone who understands both the material and the medium they're working in, the choreography, the way the camera moves, the color, the lighting, the blocking of it. Like, you can see them dancing. This isn't cut. This isn't hiding stuff. This isn't obfuscating, even though that's a part of the narrative, is like the glitz and glamour. The big musical number at the end is just like, let's see Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger just fucking dance. Like, there's no lyrics, there's barely lyrics anymore. It's just them dancing, and you just clap and the movie ends. And I just want to, like, note that down of just how bizarre it is to see someone who, and it's not new, but it is that sad thing of, like, someone who swings for the fences and knocks it out of the park and then can never even connect again after. It's just, it's such a sadness. I just look at this movie, I'm like, oh man, it makes me want to watch more movies by this person. And then I look at them and go, oh wait, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with their filmography. I think I read in trivia that, like, the film he did after this was a musical that, like, was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Then the one after was better, but, like, nowhere near as good as Chicago or something like that.
And he directed the Into the Woods movie that everyone loves, Into the Woods, the musical, but hates the movie. Like, it's like a 5 on IMDb, and Meryl Streep's in it. And it's just,
wait, that's most of the way to Chicago.
That's most of it, yeah. But, yeah. So what did you think, though, of the technicals, the style, the direction, the look, the feel?
Yeah, like I said, they really nailed it. It was always very clear when they cut to, a dance sequence from real life, because it gets very dark. They get, like, the costumes.
Makeup.
Makeup. It felt like we were going to cabaret, which I remember we brought up Chicago in the cabaret episode.
Bob Fosse.
And yeah, just there were so many great moments in those. Like I remember in the Cell Block Tango one, whenever the actresses, the murderesses would, quote unquote, murder their lover, they would like pull out this like red handkerchief from wherever, the fatal blow was dealt. And it was just this really cool, visceral thing, even though it's just literally like non-naturalistic.
It's the same,
what we're looking at.
It's the same man in all of them, like the same.
Was it?
Oh yeah. It's the same guy. He's just like, it's just, you got to be reminded, like, how would they do this on stage? They would just use the same guy. You don't notice because it's like he represents the man in each
Weren't there
story.
multiple of them in the...
Although there's two, because one of them was a black guy. Excuse me. I thought it was one guy and then the black guy, the really jacked, shirtless one who... But maybe I'm incorrect. But I thought it was the same guy in each one of them, but he wore a hat.
In my head, I just remember like multiple men like dancing with the ladies, but I guess there was just the two then.
But no, your point stands of like and then the one who's innocent, she pulls out a white handkerchief because she did not kill. Isn't that a neat detail? Did you notice that?
It's one of those things my brain did, but I didn't think about it.
I see. And that again sells you on how sad it is that she's the one that does die. Like does get executed. It's like, oh, the innocent one. Well,
the innocent one who can't communicate it.
The only other morally pure character in the movie, and they get killed, so it doesn't matter.
I amend my percentage to 98.
Thank you.
Because apparently there's 1% per character in the film, I guess.
Yes, one of them just gets murdered, though, so it's different.
Executed, right?
Yeah.
Hanged.
Sure. Did you have a favorite musical number, and what about it leapt out at you, whether it was just the song itself or the way it was shown?
The eternal earworms that I had from when I first watched it were Cell Block Tango and Razzle Dazzle. Third place being the ventriloquist song.
They reach for the gun.
Yeah,
The gun,
I remember.
gun.
Yeah, I remember when I first watched the film and went home and would occasionally like watch sequences from the film. It would be those three, but for some reason over the years that ventriloquist one just completely left my mind.
Wow.
So when it played in the movie, I'm like, oh my god, I remember loving this song.
The bit that gets stuck in my head is understandable.
And here's another thing of why it's just insane to me that I forgot it. The other word that he says, comprehensible.
Comprehensible.
That's how I learned the word. I used to always say comprehensible. And then I watched this film and I'm like, oh, it's comprehensible. Whoops, I feel silly. And I always remember whenever I hear that word comprehensible, I'm like, Chicago taught me that, but somehow I forgot the song.
It's not reprehensible, it's defensible. Yeah, that's the part of it that I always remember. And then when the song plays, I'm like, oh, that's right. This song is the one with that bit in it, because it goes throughout the whole, like it goes through the whole back and forth of the ventriloquist stuff, and then it slows down. And then you have the understandable, like it takes a little while to get that point. It changes tempo a bit. And I like that.
I remember, the metaphor of what all of that means in real life. Like I could see the scene playing normally in my head. And it's like, oh yeah, when she says the line, both reach for the gun, that's the bit of the testimony where it's like, so it was self-defense. And that's why, the tempo changes, because it's like, oh, you just said the key phrase that's going to be the thing that acquits you, basically.
I enjoy that musical number. It's one of Richard Gere's first big ones he gets to sink his teeth into, of course. I mean, he has his introduction song, but like this is the one where it's like, oh yeah, he gets to... although I do love his introduction song where he does it for love. He's like, give me $5.
That one and the Queen Latifah song, I really like the when it does cut back to the real world and it's like a direct contradiction to what they're singing. Like she's singing about like, oh, if you're good to mama will be good to you, and then
no blankets.
It cuts to her saying like, if you got something to say, don't say it to me, I don't give a shit. And he just like dismisses her as like $5,000 or nothing. Bye.
I must admit, out of all of them, I'm a sucker for Razzle Dazzle. I just love that song.
It's a great song.
I love the choreography. I love the costumes of it. I just love the pandemonium, and that's the delicate act that you have to balance with a film like this that's very over the top. It's very over the top, But you need to slowly get that boil going, because by the time you get to the media circus and then the courtroom drama, you're up to 11. But it's like, well, you could argue, wasn't the film up to 11 when you already had like Cell Block Tango as like the third or fourth song in the movie? But there is a difference. Like, there is a difference of how the songs' energies are, but also the way that we are shown them. There's a theatricality, but it gets more and more and more and more heightened. The thread that we have connecting us to reality is severed after a certain point. Like, hey, you are watching a stage show. Don't you even fucking think about this as a real world example. But then the magic touch is having those moments where the film drags itself back down to reality, and that's why John C. Reilly's character is so important. That's why you need him, because he is the person that brings the heart to the movie, or else it would be all nothing but spectacle. Like, what makes this movie more than just, and Chicago, what does make it more than just style over substance? And I think it's him. I think it's that character. I think he is the linchpin of the movie that keeps it having an emotional resonance and heart, because Roxy and Velma and all of them, they're selfish, narcissistic people. And even when the chips are down and you're supposed to feel sorry for them, it's like, well, you don't really, because they brought it upon themselves and they're assholes and they're going to try and work an angle from it. And that can be entertaining, and it's not like you can't have stories where you sympathize and feel for those type of people, but this movie doesn't want you to fully feel that way. That's why you have John C. Reilly. So,
yeah, he grounds it.
You've already had the puppet, like you've already had the Reach for the Gun song and all of this and all of that. And when he comes in and he does Mr. Cellophane, and even if you don't want to just go on his songs, just him being lost in the crowd of people, of the press after Roxy, because she's going to be a mother and he can't even get to see her. And the time he does see her, she looks at him like he's nothing. It's like, that's heartbreaking stuff. And that's what makes it more than just a stylish movie that with no substance. Because I could see like that being something thrown at this movie. It's like, it's impressive stylistically, but what's under the hood? Like, I can admire the singing, the dancing, all of that stuff, but like, is there more to this? And there's way more to it. And I think he is the central thing of it all.
Yeah, he grounds it. If you didn't have him, all of the cynical aspects of this film would be all you'd have. Mm-hmm. And it would just be up to you, the audience member, to say, this doesn't, match my understanding of morality, so this, might not be an appealing film, but so he grounds it. The only thing that I really kind of felt was a bit off was, it was still entertaining, but like basically the ending, it has like a happy ending for Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger. The way the film was going, it felt like it was going to end more in the tone of like how that trial ended, where it's like all of this and nothing. Mm-hmm. Like, it felt like that's what the film was kind of leading up to, if
you read it that way. The film and the ending of this has a few different interpretations. I like one of the trivia points is there's a video of this. I haven't watched it yet, but it's like a fan or a journalist like giving their understanding of the ending of like, yeah, and Roxy and Velma go off and gain huge success and they become these massive stars, and it's so wonderful that they got away with it. And the director just smiles politely and nods. And it feels like a very David Lynch response to like Mark Commode asking him about like electricity, and then just smiling, nodding, and then saying no. I understand that. I kind of took it as like almost like their fantasy of what that is. And I think a part of it is you keep cutting to Richard Gere's character in the crowd, and he's just given like this over-the-top crossing of the arms and shaking of the head and smile like, oh, you really showed me, girls. And I just don't believe it. Like, there's a part of it where it's so dreamy in a weird way. But again, I'm not saying that this is a movie that's like on purposely being ambiguous with its ending, but there's a level of it where it's like, this is their idealized version of events.
I can see what you're saying. Like, it's not a literal thing that's happening. It's yet another example of like the metaphor.
And the song it's all about that jazz. Like, is this ending them putting on a show for us at the end?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, this is a movie where it's like it keeps coming back to the here it is. This is what we are presenting to you of what we want reality to be. And now we end on purely that. The last bit of reality we end on is them both being destitute and being like, but we can strike it big again. They would want us. Their idea of like how they can strike it big again is not understanding the lesson that everyone has tried to impart upon them throughout the entire movie. The idea that they can achieve fame by riding the coattails of their notoriety. And they're like, well, if we're just a double act, then obviously it'll work out well. We'll be on the big stage and everyone will come and see us. It'll be wonderful. Well, the movie the whole time has been saying like that's not going to be the case. But then they give us a big show at the end, and Richard Gere and everyone there is like, oh God, they really showed us. Mama's there, and she's just like, oh God, they're so wonderful. I love those girls, when by the end she didn't care about them.
Interesting. Yeah, I need to watch this sequence again now.
There's some parts of this too where it is kind of dreamy. Like there's this segment where Mama dyes her hair blonde, and then like within a scene later it's back to normal without any comment. Which I loved. I
guess with the ending, I was distracted by the fact that the music was from Soviet Western, the show that we did.
Yes.
So I was like, hey, I know this music. It's been drilled into my head.
I will just say this, and I was watching this with my wife, and she, she was with me here. It's one of those things in which I feel like a Tex Avery cartoon when I watch this. Are you familiar with Tex Avery?
Yes. You're talking about like the wolf character.
I feel like that when I watch this movie, where it's like all of these hot women on the screen, and I just feel like the wolf, and I need to calm down by smashing plates on my head because this movie's just so hot. Like the movie's like, hey, we're going to end on Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger, who are both gorgeous and jacked in this movie, just dancing and jumping and wiggling in front of you, and then that's the end. And I'm like, thank you. I'm thankful. This movie's full of hot people. Queen Latifah's hot in this movie. Big Mama's House. No, she wasn't in that. She was in Bringing Down the House. She's in another house movie that we did.
Yeah, literally before we started recording, you brought up like, oh, this is the second Queen Latifah film that we've done on the podcast. This year. This year specifically, because we did
Stranger Than Fiction.
And you're like, she was in a film that we did on the first podcast. And I paused for a second because I was like, which house film was it? It was Bringing Down the House, not Man of the House.
Not Man of the House, or not Big Mama's House. I've done a few house movies, but not enough whale films. But I was just like, I have to comment on that because it's there. This movie's just like, we got everyone's hot. Richard Gere's hot. Everyone's so hot in this movie.
Yeah, well, sex appeal is a very big part of the style of the film.
And what they are about. Like, Renee Zellweger steals Velma's little tricks to win in court, like showing her thigh and the garter belt and all of that.
Yeah. It didn't work on me because I'm a pure anime hero, but I was thinking about one thing. I was thinking about one thing during the film, where when I was in year 12, I went to an all boys school, and there was an all girls school like basically across the road from us, a bit down, and we did co-productions with each other. So like, oh, they'll do roles in our school production, we'll do roles in their school production. And the year before this year that I'm about to talk about, they were talking about like, oh, for 2011, what's the musical show that we're going to do? And one that they kept talking about was they were going to do Chicago. It was like they were talking about it for a very long time, like, we're going to do Chicago. And, thinking back on it, it's like,
Did the Spread Eagle.
Yeah, was that ever going to actually happen?
We did Chicago in part. We had drama of Stedfords where you had to do musical bits, and we did Chicago, and we did the Cell Block Tango. I was the guy. So I just got to pivot around.
You were the cheater.
Yes.
Well, not all of them were cheating, sorry. Never
Not
mind.
all of them were They were bad husbands.
Yes. You were the
They
straw that broke
deserved
someone's
it.
back.
They brought it to themselves. He stepped into my knife.
So were you all of them?
Yes.
Okay, no wonder you noticed that there was only
Yes.
one or two.
There was only a few. But
How'd you do the blackface and the whiteface at the same time?
Yeah. But one of the girls phonetically learned the Hungarian. So that was fun because you have to have one of them
Jesus
do. Yeah.
Christ, yeah.
But since we were like 16, one of my friends had to do the Captain Zeta Jonesy bit and like that whole segment, and it's like that whole bit hinges on the spread eagle, and it's like you can't ask a 16-year-old girl to do the spread eagle on a stage where their parents are going to be in the audience. So we had to come up with a solution for that. It's such a weird thing, and you know this as well, having been in the world of drama and theater and all of that. And like when we would do our productions, it's like, let's come up with solutions to random bullshit problems that shouldn't exist, but they do. Like, oh, what do we do with this? And this is one of those where we had to come up with a solution. And what we came up with was another one of the girls ran across the stage with like, you know how they had like the red handkerchiefs and strips and all that. We had a black one as a big censor bar, which was very fun. I thought that was a very fun solution to that problem, because you can't do that. There's a level, but at the same time, Bartek, you went to a Catholic school, right? I can speak from public school. Teenagers want, for some reason in drama, to do the sexy productions. They just want to do these angsty, I'm an adult thing. I always call it, I've mentioned it to you before, I can't remember if I mentioned it on the pod, but we did a drama night one time and a girl in my year did this monologue called Behind the Black Stump, where their character is pregnant, and it's a monologue about how they got sexually assaulted behind the black stump and now they're pregnant with this baby. And they were like 14 when they did this monologue. And I'm just like, you're doing this in front of your grandmother. You know, like, who's this for? You're not going to be, you know what I mean? And I always call it like the black stump mentality of like, here's a 14-year-old who wants to do that type of one, or the one who's like, I want to play a prostitute in the school play and this and this and this. And it's like, teenagers don't. Yes, exactly. It's show off I'm an adult. And the problem is, if the school isn't smart enough to, like mine wasn't, to say no.
Yeah.
To have tact and taste, then some school has done Chicago as a musical and done it sexy, and it's going to be very awkward for the adults and the peers and the children and all that in the audience watching it, just sitting there going, oh boy.
Yeah, it's funny because it was the teacher's idea to do whatever they ended up doing. They ended up doing Alice in Wonderland. I was the king.
Oh, really?
Yes. I was the only member of the cast who could not sing.
Well, that's okay.
But they liked me from the previous year when we did Picnic at Hanging Rock, so that I got the role for some reason.
Did the king sing much?
I literally had one line in the play that wasn't sung, and then I had a short verse in a trial song.
Nice.
And because I couldn't sing, they made the gag that like I sing so badly that everyone has to like cover their ears and like they're in pain.
That's beautiful.
I have the DVD of the show.
Problem solving.
Yes. For a long time, like I was actually trying to sing properly because I was singing like a really high falsetto, and they told me like, oh, you can actually kind of get it right, but I just wasn't quite perfecting it. So I was like, okay, let's just make you not sing well.
A tidbit I want to give about Chicago that I watched and saw from that recent John C. Reilly video where he covered his career and he talked about Chicago, was he said it was very important to him because he was from Chicago. He's from Chicago and he was a theater guy. He said it was very important to him that it came across that he loved her. Because he's like, you need to have that to make the audience love her. You need someone in the movie who genuinely loves her. And he made it a very important thing to like, I played it like I did love her. And he's like, I hope that showed. I'm like, buddy, it showed.
Oh yeah, even like narratively, like he's when he discovers that, you know, she murdered her lover, he seems done with it, but he still goes to the big lawyer and like sets everything in motion. And that makes it extra sad when he's, shoved off to the side, except when they need him to play like the humble husband.
To play a role, but he's not an actor.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. They want him to be a part of the act, and he is not.
And they even have that really like slimy thing where Richard Gere's character never gets his name right.
Only in court.
Except when, it's time to do the show.
And even then, when they're dispensed with it in court, he still gets his name wrong at the end, just as an extra little...
It's like, well, show's over, you're Andy again, not Amos.
We've done a few movies that involve the law, the court case, the big trial, all of that. And I don't know about you, but I am a sucker for courtroom shenanigans. I love these type of movies, these type of stories where it's like Richard Gere calls the witnesses audience. Like, no, he calls them fellow actors, and then he calls the jury audience, and he's like, slipping up on his little shtick. And like we said before, Catherine Zeta-Jones, she's in Intolerable Cruelty, and Intolerable Cruelty is like a series of just those wacky courtroom scenes. I just love high stakes, intense, but also comedically over the top courtroom scenes. Like when Catherine Zeta-Jones rocks up in the court, and you're like, oh, she's going to flip it around. And then you reveal, actually, Richard Gere was behind all of that. And he got them both off. He never loses. Just double-crossing all of that wise stuff. But it made me think of when Catherine Zeta-Jones rocked up and she's trying to do all of her sexier stuff against this jury who don't give a shit about her. I couldn't help but think of something like Serial Mum, where it's like, you got Kathleen Turner, who also has that husky voice, and she's like trying to win over the jury for being like sweet, wholesome mum, but also sexy. And I'm like, oh boy, just
I think
all of this stuff. I just am a sucker for this.
Courtrooms were not made for, the justice system or whatever. They're made for films.
Oh yeah,
because they're always so much fun. Did this
and TV?
Yes. Did this director's other films have courtroom scenes?
It's been a while since I've watched The Little Mermaid. Was there a courtroom scene in Little Mermaid at all? Was there like a live action crab that banged a gavel or anything like that?
Look, man, like half an hour ago I said that there was a pelican in the film, and I'm actually starting to wonder if I was right.
It was a seagull.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Pelican.
I remember after I said that and you agreed, you were saying a whole bunch of other things, and I was just thinking to myself, like, I'm wrong, aren't I?
Yeah, you're wrong.
So I was only like half listening.
Yeah, it's okay. Did you have a favorite performance in this, whether it's from their acting or their singing and dancing, or anyone that took you by surprise?
That's a good question. They're all so good, but yeah, just I think I have to give it to Richard Gere. Yeah, he's just so well realized in this film that I'm still kind of blown away by it. Like his whole, philosophy about, courtrooms and how it's all a circus, and, he understands exactly how the public and the reporters work. You have that great line where he mentions, it's one of the reports that's happening in the prison, where he's saying like, oh, there's some kind of like money reward for whatever. Mm-hmm. And as they're walking away, she's like, well, what's this about, a money reward? And he's like, they're stupid. They'll write something in the paper, we'll say that they got it wrong, and then that'll be the end of it.
And they won't complain.
Yeah. And then by the end of the film, there is no twist. He was right.
Yeah, of course. He was right about pretty much everything.
Yeah. And there were many points where something went wrong, and it was like water off a duck's back because he just immediately bounced off of it just fine.
And things only went wrong because they didn't listen to him.
Yeah.
I love that type of character. So I know you haven't watched it. Boy, I really wish you would. Breaking Bad, I mentioned before, but
what's that?
Yeah, exactly. Breaking Bad, one of the characters who then gets his spin-off show, Better Call Saul, Saul Goodman. The big thing about that show is everything would have gone smoothly if they took his advice. That's the thing about it, is like he is a sleazy, gross lawyer, but the thing is, he is a great lawyer. The joke that they make at the beginning of the show with him is, you want a criminal lawyer. And the thing is, the show is about like Walter White and Jesse fuck things up for themselves, and they go to Saul, and he keeps giving them brilliant advice that they either half do or ignore completely. And it's like when you step back and look at the whole entire thing, everything he advised was correct. And I love that type of thing where it's like, no matter how sleazy they are, if they're a good lawyer, they're a good lawyer. And it's like, but what's a good lawyer mean? And this film like explores that of like, oh, does a good lawyer mean morally upright? No. The legal system, like with any system, can be leveraged, can be benefited, can be used and abused, or the justice system in general. Mama, do you find her a sympathetic character? Kinda. Weirdly, by the end, I liked her, but she's scum. She's a piece of shit who uses her position of power to extort people and then throw them away when they're not needed. But Queen Latifah's just so nice. Like, she's playing mean in this movie at times, but she's just so... And that's why she's one of my favorite performances, and I'm always surprised by Queen Latifah as an actress. I think I've said this since we've covered her on the podcast, from Bringing Down the House. I mentioned it on Stranger Than Fiction, and I'll mention it again. She's one of those people that I always am not taking enough, like I'm not like accepting of her enough as an actress. I think of her as like, oh, she's a musician, she was a rapper, but weirdly enough, I'm less familiar with her music career than I am with her acting career. But I think that there's that thing, but I don't know why, because each time I see her, she always impresses me. I'm always smitten with what she does, and each one of these performances are drastically different from one another, and yet there's still that pervasive charm that she has on the screen. She just has great screen presence, and she has that smile and those nice warm eyes where you just can't help but be won over. But the three characters that we've covered of her on the podcast are all very different and bring very different types of performances from her. But I just like her. She just seems great.
Yeah, Bringing Down the House has been so long now that it's kind of not fresh in my mind, so I can't speak for that one. But I remember with Stranger Than Fiction, like, one of the big takeaways I had from that film with her character was like, man, she was really underutilized.
Yeah, an understated performance too.
Yeah.
Bringing Down the House, her whole character was she's loud and annoying, and that's paired with Steve Martin's conservative, quiet guy type thing. And then the beautiful joy of seeing her be in a comedy duo with Eugene Levy is just like, what a weird pairing, but I love it.
Yeah, she probably had, at least a little bit more screen time in this compared to Stranger Than Fiction, but she felt very much not at place, part of the ensemble.
Oh yeah, she's in a position of power.
Yeah, she's in a position of power, but I mean, just in the film itself, like, you feel her presence. She's used exactly where she needs to be. She's well, established, well realized. And you have some pretty funny gags with her, like you mentioned, the hair thing. She has all these, like sassy little lines, or like just knowing looks, like when she gives the diary to Catherine Zeta-Jones,
or when she ups the price from 50 to 100 for Renee Zellweger. Like, she gives it's $50 call for Catherine Zeta-Jones, $100 for Renee Zellweger.
Yes,
and Renee tries to
call.
and Roxy tries to call it out, but then she's like, oh shit, I'm not supposed to have heard that, so she has to like just take it, which is very good. I do want to, I mean, it's obvious she's the lead, but Renee Zellweger is one of those stars where you can't help but just... We've been doing a lot of older movies on the podcast, and there's something about especially when we look at Hollywood, there's something about those actors of the golden age of Hollywood where there was a expectation of them to do everything. Be funny, be able to sing, dance, do the drama, whether they could all pull that off or not, but there was like a certain desire for them to be able to do all of those things. Obviously, Indian cinema has that as well. Whether they actually sing is different, but, there's an expectation there.
You got to have some dance expertise.
But I bring that up because obviously this is a throwback to like the 20s and 30s type era, but Renee Zellweger is one of those people where she has to hold it all together, and she brings it all. Like, she brings that energy of those performers from that time. One of the moments that just hit me so hard in this is not a song of hers. It's not a dance number. It's not one of her more. It's during they both reach for the gun bit where she gets to lean in to the mic to the press, and it's like, it's like, I can't remember the exact question, but they're like, "Oh, do you feel bad about it or whatever?" It's like, "You kidding me?" And that's there. Like, that's just one of those where it's like, oh, that's such a 1930s type line delivery, just in her character, and you just see Renee Zellweger's entire posture and her face change in that exact moment from into something that we ourselves haven't really seen during the movie, let alone in that press conference where she's forced to play a certain type of character that Richard Gere has created. That little, like, surly line showed us something that we haven't really seen in the character at that point in the film, but we will for the rest of the film see that kind of surly, kind of low down commoner type personality shine through. And it's hard. Like, a part of me wants to be like, oh, let's look at all the other people, but Renee Zellweger's the star of the movie, and she's one of those actresses that's had a long career, that's been very versatile. Like, to put it into frame of reference for you, the year before she did this, she did Bridget Jones's Diaries, which is a very different type of movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it or if
I haven't.
It's one of her most synonymous movies, and in that, she's like a frumpy British woman looking for love. And in this, it's like she's a 1920s criminal in prison, and she's singing and dancing, and like, I don't know how she did it. Like, they're within a year of each other, and she had to like physically transform from like what in the early 2000s was considered fat to incredibly thin and athletic in this movie. Like, within the span of a year or two, she had to flip that around. And yeah, I just liked Renee Zellweger in this a lot. Like, I'm like, oh, Renee Zellweger is very funny. She's another one who was like, underestimated. Like, oh, Renee Zellweger is just very funny. She's always good.
Yeah, I like that they kind of they were doing similar thing to what they were doing in a film that comes much later, The Neon Demon, where we're following this actress character. She was an actress in that, right? No, she was a model. She was some sort of attractive entertainer of sorts. And in that film, there was the question of like, oh, was she really innocent at the start? And she turned into this kind of cynical in the industry person, or was she always secretly like that? Whereas in this one, we follow the transformation a bit more closely, and it's you get to see all of like the little stages of that. It's
interesting because Elle Fanning is actually someone that I would say is a good comparison as well as an actress to Renee Zellweger in terms of like the blonde-haired, meek, doe-eyed.
Yeah, similar vibe.
Different kind of careers, but like visually very similar in that kind of way. And also like Neon Demon in this also has that question of like, were they ever talented? Or was it just that they were propelled by their looks and how malleable they were from other people? And this film doesn't give you it doesn't want to give you an easy answer on that, because it wants to say no, but then we see so much of how good she is. She's the one that comes up with the pregnancy bit. Richard Gere didn't come up with that.
Yeah, that was a desperation move to like bring him back even.
And it showed that she's better at the acts of desperation than Renee Zellweger. I mean, than Velma, than Catherine Zeta-Jones is. When Catherine Zeta-Jones doesn't know how in any way to humble herself. While with Roxy, although she's become a narcissist, she started from more humble beginnings. So she knows even how to feign that, let alone be able to pull it off in a court of law, which is just... I like when they listen to radio, it's like, oh, and she's fainted again! And just the rolling of the eyes, like, oh, she's really milking it now. I like how much we didn't see of that. It was just so funny. But also just, again... the performance within performance, when Richard Gere like leans over to pick her up after she's fainting, she like ridges back up, just like like just like looks at him and says whatever line it is about like hell bullseye, like hell of a shot we're doing right here. All right, let's go. And then just her crazy being like, I can't believe they didn't take my photo, because some new sensation has taken over Chicago.
Like the moment that she got acquitted, someone got shot outside. So, that's the attention now.
I do have to say a large part of this too is just like the idea of like, it's Chicago. Like they just keep like, it's Chicago. It is what it is. This town isn't easy. It's not going to give you this on a silver platter. You're not just going to be handed it. And I will refer back to the John C. Reilly video one more time because he said something that I had never thought about before, which is he took ages as an actor to find his place because he's from Chicago, where if you strike it big in a play or on Broadway or in a movie in LA or New York, you will become a star that the industry and the world knows about. But in Chicago, you have to cut your teeth, and it's a longer period of time. You don't just snap of the fingers, get stardom overnight in Chicago. It's a much more hard-working town, and it breeds this mentality in the performers there and the people there of helping lift other people up. That's why he has said he rarely tries to have starring, like leading man roles, because he gets more enjoyment from being the person who helps lift someone like Will Ferrell up or lift someone like Steve Coogan up or so on and so forth, and them do that for him. And I think that is interesting because you do see that bleed through in this film, like that idea of like, this is Chicago. This isn't New York. Like they don't even say this isn't New York or this isn't LA, but that's kind of like that underpinning of like fame. This idea of fame in Chicago isn't just going to be like, well, you're a star who will endure now. You're great.
Hey.
You're like even Velma when she was when she was a dancer, it was because you were part of an act. It wasn't just you yourself. That was the star. You were part of an ensemble of people.
If you're not at the East Coast or the West Coast, you don't get to coast by.
I love that, actually. That's pretty good. Is there anything else you want to say about Chicago or its alternative title, Chicago?
Chicago. Interesting. We're not forgetting any major characters, right? We're not going to end this episode and be like, we didn't even talk about her, did we?
Oh, no, we didn't talk about everyone's favorite character, the prosecutor. Played by that really mean-looking guy who always plays mean-looking guys. I did look him up. He's in a million things, that actor. He's Canadian, and he has this wonderful quote about if it's a famous Canadian like historical figure and they die, I've played them. It's happened to me 6 times in my career. I've played a historically well-known Canadian figure and they died. And I'm like, that is such a specific thing, because no offense to Canadians out there, I don't think I could name you 6 historically relevant Canadians off the top of my dome. I think I would actually struggle to do that. That aren't people like who are actors, like, oh, William Shatner's Canadian. Like, that's not going to count. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you historical, like they're from long ago.
Yeah, but he has, and I think that's very good.
Yeah.
Like, I've played them. He's like, if it's Canadian and they have to die and there's someone of note, I have played them. And I'm like, good for you, buddy. You know what you do.
Look, Canada, you haven't been
Colonized?
You haven't been C-word long enough.
Were you trying to say colonized?
Yes.
I mean, they are part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah. Our Commonwealth brothers.
Yes, the king finally dared to visit their filthy country.
Canadians, when's your king's birthday?
Yeah, is the king's birthday...
Do all Commonwealth countries do that?
No, I think it's different depending on what works business-wise for individual countries. So for those out there, we have the king/queen's birthday, and it's never actually on the birthday of said monarch because that is bad for business.
Yeah, and it's actually different for every state in our country.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize that was different for states. I didn't realize. Not every individual state, but I guess certain states it may be different days, right? Because New South Wales and Victoria had it the same day. So.
Oh, okay.
But that may be like, who knows, Western Australia or Queensland might do it different. Like, that's the thing. Like,
I'm kind of baffled that my brother gets it mixed up because he has a friend that comes from, I guess, Western Australia and it's different there. And I guess that friend has made it such a big enough point that my brother gets confused about when it is here.
No, I see. Yeah, Australia, when it comes to individual, like, separate states and stuff, it is weird how the little differences, like, Western Australia's in a different time zone because it's so far away. But then Queensland's in a different time zone because they don't do daylight savings.
Yeah.
They refuse to do it, which I commend them on. I also don't want to do it.
We had our king's birthday the day after we recorded To Be or Not to Be.
Yeah, what a day it was. But I can't think of much else that I want to reference. Some interesting behind-the-scenes stuff. Catherine Zeta-Jones was pregnant during the production of this, which is awesome.
That's
Amazing.
Very full-on job for a pregnant lady.
Yes, very impressive.
Yeah.
John C. Reilly, because of his clown background, did his own clown makeup. So that was his idea of what it should look like and him applying it and all that. And he has a phobia of things going near his eyes. So as an actor, it's hell on earth for him because with makeup, you always have to have something go near your eyes.
You know, when it comes to irrational fears, that's higher end on the rational, I guess.
Yes.
There's a very real threat of like, hey, what if that gets in my eye?
I don't have necessarily a fear of it, but it is that like I have the natural like response of flinching away a bit, but then after like I steel myself and go, all right, you just do it. Like it's not a fear, but like my body naturally is like, ugh.
Yeah, I know that when I get a haircut and they're cutting the fringe near the eye, I'm like, I'm going to close that eye.
Yeah. But I recommend Chicago. I had a blast. I think this is one of those films that just feels like it's the greatest film you've ever watched, and I can't think of too many movie musicals like of this scale afterwards that are just as entertaining as this and sway me, where this isn't my type of music. This isn't my type of musical per se, but I can't deny that the songs are good. I can't deny that the characters are engaging. Like, you know what I mean by that? Like, this isn't something that I typically would think to myself I would like, but the songs are what they are, and the story is what it is, and the characters are who they are, that I am just won over by these elements that I would usually think would hold me back.
Yeah, I said it, I think, 2 or 3 times already this episode, but when I say that this film nailed it, I really do mean that they took the elements of this play. I've never actually seen the play, by the way. I'm just
No, I haven't seen the stage musical either.
Yeah, but it took these elements and it translated it to the film medium in a way that still makes it work. It uses the conventions of, stage plays as the metaphor for what is literally happening in the film. So it kind of uses the best of both worlds in a way. And I think even if it is something that you're not necessarily interested in as a topic, just seeing the execution be done so well is what makes this film so great.
So,
and I do recommend it.
Of course. The next episode, we shall be talking about a movie that has come recommended from you, the listening people.
Ryan pointed at me.
You're the listening people's stand-in because you write their stuff in the list. Yeah. You're the one who puts it in the list.
Yeah, it is mostly me.
So you put this one in the list. You wrote it down from our good doctor friend.
Ooh, Dr. Rashes.
And I guess it's good because it kind of connects in a weird way to this because we're going to do Ali G Indahouse. And John C. Reilly worked with Sacha Baron Cohen on Talladega Nights together. So we haven't done it. Have we done any movie with Sacha Baron Cohen? Am I forgetting an obvious one in the room that I'm like, well, I don't remember. How could I forget that we have done blank? I can't recall.
We've done a few with his ex-wife, but I don't know about him himself.
But we shall be talking about what could potentially be our first Sacha Baron Cohen, and it's of a character that we both have talked about with a varying level of fondness, I would say, on our part. Like, both of us over the years have talked about the Ali G show in some way, and this movie with different levels of if we like it or not.
Yeah,
so,
we both unanimously love Ali G Indahouse, but one of us has expressed more fondness for this film than the other.
Yes. If anyone, please, if you have a copy of this on DVD or physical media, listen to the commentary track. It's a whole other experience.
Yeah.
I don't have a copy of it physically right now, but
I do.
Yes. I may ask for
I'll bring it next week if you want.
A copy to at least listen to the commentary track after we do our podcast, just because it is one of the fun ones where they get up to some hijinks. Let's just say it like that. They do some real fun shit in the commentary tracks.
I've watched the film multiple times. I've only listened to the commentary track once, and it's really something that I need to listen to again.
The major thing I remember about the commentary track is them ogling the actress that's in the movie, which is very silly. Like, they're being overtly childish about it. So thank you all so much for listening. You can find us on your social medias of Facebook and Twitter, Spit and Polish Presents. Bartek, how can people contact us if they want to let us know their thoughts and opinions or film recommendations?
Basically, any way that you can send a communication message to any of our Spit and Polish related things, like, we'll receive it and we'll be able to read it. So that can be on our Facebook page, Spit and Polish Presents, our Twitter /x.com, also Spit and Polish Presents. Look for the logo, you'll find us. We have an email that you can directly contact us at, which is spitandpolished@gmail.com. That's Polish in the past tense. And YouTube comments. We get notifications about those, so we can read those very easily. We referenced a YouTube comment earlier.
That's right.
With this film was the film of next episode was recommended to us through a YouTube comment.
Final statement to make. Who would you play in Chicago? If you had the opportunity, any role, who would you play?
Yes, and I can sing.
Yeah. And dance. Not any of it. Knowing me, I personally would want to play the lawyer, but I know that I would play the John C. Reilly role. Like, I've mentioned this before, but people, weirdly enough, when I do a lot of like character stage stuff, I often actually play those type of characters more than I do like the exaggeratedly confident ones. I just somehow I kind of slot into those more than what I would actually want. Like, it's not that I don't want to play. I want to play the John C. Reilly role, but a part of me is like, I would really love to play the Richard Gere type, but I do naturally lean towards the Mr. Cellophane.
Yeah, I also think that I would want to play the Richard Gere type, but also part of me... And I hate that this is a one-scene character, but, like, the guy that gets killed?
Yes.
I reckon that could be fun.
I think you would be great as the prosecution.
Bag. Yeah?
Your
Honor, I didn't even ask a question yet.
He could be the governor. Remember that they threatened that, and then that didn't... They're like, one day he could become the governor, and that could be a problem, and then, no, he's just made a boob of at the end.
I liked in the scene where Richard Gere's telling the story of the Lucy Liu character, how his commentary over like the very literal dark things that's happening there is just completely off. That was fun. I'll play Lucy Liu. She doesn't have to sing.